The general approach to the series was not to get overawed by the spectacle and the visuals, because it's very easy to make it beautiful and shocking and big, and not really deal with the characters. And the more real it is, the more the actors can take it into themselves and be those characters. It's both giving the actors a chance to play larger than life, but true to life at the same time.
Okay, stand by, and back in action!
Rome was the choice because it's got the right light, it's got the right craftsmen. There's the Italian sense of bella figura, of a certain way of carrying yourself, a certain dignity that was very useful for the actors who all had to essentially live in Rome for up to 2 years, fed off that.
And in the end, for me, in terms of background and authenticity, the most important thing, you've got Roman extras. They talk Roman, and they gesture Roman, and they move Roman, and they interact Roman. If you hire 400 people to turn up, and you dress them all up and stick them in costume, and they don't look Roman, you're going to lose a huge element of your show.
Okay, cominciate, su!
We looked at a lot of different places, and I think that our instinct always was to come here because this is where the story actually happened.
I would say, for me, as a director, that walking around the streets of Rome, it feels like it informs what you're doing. When you come on the set, you kind of feel like it's an extension of your everyday life. In whatever way that affects what you're doing, I can't help but think it makes it better.
In terms of the art department and the hair and makeup and costume and photography, there's definitely something Italian in there. They have some instinct for beauty, they have some instinct to make things slightly lyrical. Somehow I think that's given us a level of reality which has been a fantastic addition. You know, I think if we'd have made it in a hangar in southwest London, could have been practical, I think something would have been lost. And that's before you start to talk about the light, and somehow that informs it. The texture of the show, I think, will have benefited enormously from being here in Rome.
We are working with a crew that already knows this period intimately. I think that brings us an immeasurable quality to the series that it wouldn't be there if we just plunked down sets and shot it someplace else.
Yes, because if you remember, one was more straight, the other one she was more to the side. Yes.
I think it gives it, and again, a bit of an immediacy that we're here, and a lot of people working on it are Romans and very proud of being Romans. So there's a civic pride that is injected by the crew, you know, and the crew have been amazing. They know that eventually when this comes out, this will celebrate their city.
It really makes me happy, you know, to work in this project. It's a challenge.
It's a challenge.
Seeing the pride that's coming through, the pride of the Roman people themselves, as you see around you, the set designers and the stunt guys and the fight coordinators, there's this immense sense of pride. So you can feed off that, which is just fantastic. It's priceless.
It feels right that we're here, you know. It feels like now that we're here, it couldn't have been done anywhere else.
If you feel a little bit out of place or a little bit in awe of it, you just go down to the Forum itself and walk through the streets and see the bones of what we have here.
What you get a sense of from the ruins that are left is that it was a real place, that it was a real city, and very like cities are today. I think it was very inspiring for the actors to be standing on the exact spot their characters stood on. It makes them real.
To come past the Forum, the Colosseum, and down the Via Appia Antica, the old Appian Way, on the way to the studio every morning. And many of them said to me that it just got them focused and in the zone.
We chose to shoot in Rome at Cinecittà Studios for a number of reasons. Technically, it's one of the great studios in the world. It's 20 acres just outside Rome.
It's famous because it's associated with the greatest Italian directors, and probably most famously of all with Fellini. Cleopatra was also shot there. So, you know, it's not just great Italian films, but gigantic epic films, you know, international co-productions and so on have been shot there as well.
So it has a great culture and tradition and history of high-level filmmaking.
And the other thing that Cinecittà has is the back lot. Huge, gigantic, clear open space at the back, which of late has been extremely popular with international production as well. So 2 of the movies that had just shot before we went there were Martin Scorsese's Gangs of New York, and Mel Gibson had also shot The Passion there. And of course, it's so huge, it was one of the only places where we could actually create the back lot set, the 5-acre set.
Unlike most people who came in with kind of historical research, Joe came in with off-the-wall stuff, Mary Ellen Frank photographs, so, pictures of Bombay and Mexico City, interiors from old Havana. So it was clear he had a kind of both a rigorous technical skills, but also a fresh and imaginative aesthetic about what this should look like. And we wanted it to look both authentic and accurate, but strange and beautiful, and Joe got that immediately.
A lot of the interpretations of Rome have been from classical painters of like the 17th, 18th century, in which case they're interpreting a kind of romanticized version of Rome. What we wanted to try and do was something that was more honest and true to life.
This is, for us, is a big challenge, but at the same time we could be scared about the scale of the project. But at the same time, we are quite proud to do it.
The biggest challenge is sort of achieving it in the time and trying to get all those disparate elements. Also, not to make it look like it's been designed by one hand, a feeling that different hands have been involved in the making of it, which a real city has. You know, that's what the Forum always was. It was more like Times Square or Piccadilly Circus or something. There was always stuff going on, things being taken up, things being put down. It was an organic place.
Whenever I take people round, I always start with the Forum.
One of the things that would first strike you is both the great scale of the place, but the busyness of it. It's a marketplace, it's a law court, it's gambling den, it's all those things all at the same time, so it's a real beating heart of the city.
It's by far the biggest set I've ever been on.
It spreads over 5 acres. It's an enormous site.
Over there is another huge area. Over there is another vast area. It just doesn't stop.
Sometimes when you walk onto the Forum, you just pretty much takes your breath away.
At this period, it was already 700 years old, so it's far more ramshackle and thrown together than you would think, and it's far dirtier and worn, and there's cracks in the pavement, and the paint is peeling. If you bring all of those things together, you start to get a feel of a real urban reality. Gladiators are one of the most famous aspects of Roman life, but the vast spectacle of the Colosseum was built about 100 years after our period. Is also not really representative of the gladiatorial world. It was a far more small-scale and day-to-day event.
There was not a dedicated single place for gladiatorial combat, a stone place dedicated to gladiatorial combat, really until the Colosseum was built. But the gladiators continued to be displayed on temporary wooden bleachers in the way that we represented it.
And a gladiator show could be put on anywhere, as we've done put on in the Forum.
The historical reality absolutely informs and underlies everything in that space. And the Forum is the most immediately, dramatically, overwhelmingly impressive. God, you know, just the scale of it, because it blows you away, because it is just over 50% of the size of the real Roman Forum downtown. But the next thing that always amazes people is, and I say for my next trick, I always say, there's not a single piece of stone, not one, in the whole Forum. It's all made out of resin and fiberglass. If you walk around the back of all the buildings fronting onto the Forum, you just see all the scaffolding holding it up. So it's all just a frontage, all made out of fiberglass. And the set, despite its immensity, was built in 5 months from scratch. And they had over 400 craftsmen from all over Europe, not just Italy, and some specialists in from India. There's also a good part of the set you can't even see, which is the whole of the set underground is cabled and also piped for gas. So all the torches that you see lit in the night scenes and so on, you never had the trouble of torch light because they're all gas torches.
Rehearsing and action.
I think that the standards of craftsmanship in Italy are probably as high as you would find anywhere in the world for the construction of a set on this scale. And they're evident outside, but I think they're probably even more evident in the interiors and most evident in the houses of the rich.
This is the opulent villa of one of my main leading ladies out here. You can see they're lighting it and everything like that. The garden's being finished, plants are going down, gaps are being filled, sculptures are hopefully going in. But here you can see we're finishing off the floor, we're finishing off the wall paintings. We come through here and then we have different bedrooms. There's Octavia's bedroom being finished there. There's the main bathroom being finished here. Whole teams of people working here. There's Maria, leader of this team, has been doing all this beautiful work. And through here, there's these windows. You can see through to Octavian's bedroom. Everything kind of interconnects and is quite labyrinthine, because obviously we have to show a lot of stuff happens in these villas. You know, it's very, very important. So obviously we need to make it as interesting as possible so you don't get bored.
The rich were unbelievably, fabulously rich and could afford to live in luxury beyond our dreams. They loved colour and vibrancy and beauty. There's an outward display of status and dignity that was important to get across.
Mi raccomando, vita tutti! 3, 2, 1, action!
Once we built it, the real challenge is to make it seem just a natural part of the background, trying to use this set as one would use New York City, as a living, breathing thing that is another character in the piece.
Bruno's made a big thing, and I think it's absolutely appropriate, about trying to divest yourself of what I call Holy Rome, which is the image that we've always got from the movies, and try and completely rethink that and put something else in its place. And you can put a modern Indian city in its place, Calcutta or Bombay, that immense mass of people, that riot of colour, that sense of smell and noise and busyness. And I think that's absolutely on the money.
Right. Sorry for all the fuss.
Great, thank you. Okay.
And there are two notorious slum areas, if you want to call them that, of Rome, of which the most notorious was called the Suburra.
To get the real sense of how filthy it was to live in a world where there was no running water for the poor, there was water running in the streets. So the sweat and the grit is a big part of what you see on the screen. And certainly there were a lot of times that the actors were very uncomfortable, but only as uncomfortable as Romans must have been at the time.
We know, for example, that they lived in apartment blocks that were up to 6 or 7 stories high. We know they were the victims of slum landlords who had absolutely no regard for their life. We know that the rooms in those apartment blocks got progressively smaller as you got nearer the top. So we know people endured conditions of really pretty abject poverty.
By the end of the shoot, we had a whole menagerie. We had fleas, rats, pigeons, hawks feeding on the pigeons that were feeding on the rats. It was a whole ecosystem in itself.
What are you waiting for? Now, now!
Senatorial debate was a pretty full-on business. They would bring the lictors in to arrest people, drag them off to prison. They'd punch people. People would fall on their knees and plead for mercy.
And that's pretty much what it was like. I mean, Caesar was assassinated in the Senate by fellow senators, which is kind of strange when you think about it. As high-flown as the rhetoric was, they were also willing to pull out knives and kill each other when the need arose. So we tried to get those two aspects of it in the same building.
Movimento! Action! No! No, let me down! Let me down!
We used Caesar's own account quite substantially to reconstruct the camps that you see in the show when Caesar's on campaign in Gaul.
The Roman army on the move would be a vast city on the move.
The Romans built a camp every single night
in a matter of hours, they would essentially build a fortress, put up a great wall, dig a great trench, and put up all the tents.
It was one of the reasons that they were so hard to beat, because they were never defenseless.
The eagle of the Legion, the standards of the Legion, all those things were sacred to soldiers. The symbols of the Legion and that life was everything to them.
Roll cameras! Blocca, blocca! Action! Cavalli, guardate! Alzatevi! Indietreggiate! Scappate!
Okay, I'm the military trainer, military advisor for the show. So I was brought to train all the Legionnaires, train the actors who have military bearing.
We took 65 guys. They were told they was going to be treated like soldiers. We taught them how to march, we taught them discipline. The hardest thing was teaching them to get rid of their mobile phones.
We dress like them, we walk like them, we act like them. It's a really great time for us.
We learned Roman sword and shield fighting. They'd done push-ups all day long. They lived in a tent for 2 weeks. The only way they could clean themselves at night was in a lake. No soaps, no deodorants, no hair gel, which was tough for the Italians. They feel and they look like soldiers. They're not just extras in costumes.
We're showing how these cohorts fought and why they seem to survive so long. At Julius Caesar's great battle against Vercingetorix of the Gauls, there was 260,000 barbarians against 60,000 Roman soldiers, and they won. The method of fighting, the way of every 30 to 40 seconds, whistle would blow, or the centurion would turn his helmet, there would be a signal, the front rank would spin round, go to the back, the first guy would stand up forward, shields out, bang it down, and they're in. The guy at the back gets some water, puts a new knife, picks up another spear. He's got about 5 or 6 minutes before he gets to the front line. By that time, he's fresh as the daisy, bang, bang, chopping him to bits. So you could actually have a career in the army.
So happy with his uniform, I just couldn't believe how wonderful it looked. Oh, okay. Hi there.
I'm shooting.
Yeah,
I'm getting naked now.
Excuse us.
April came in and just knocked us over with enthusiasm and a keen eye. She came in with not the cliches, but with a fresh, imaginative take on it. And it was clear what we were going to get was someone who is a genuine designer of clothes, an artist, as opposed to someone just recreating historical artifacts.
She went to India, which is where she bought her fabrics, and she did a lot of research and work out in India, and she incorporated that vibrant colour into the look. Any of that stuff in the Forum, there are a few little dots of white in amidst the slaves dressed in those dun browns, and then, you know, women in oranges and greens and blues, and it's very colourful, as that Roman world was, extremely colourful.
We're being as historically accurate as we can possibly be, we think. It's big. It's all over the place. There are 2,700 costumes in the first 3 episodes. Beggars' costumes, slaves, foreigners, to Julius Caesar, all of the nobles.
She went up to India and bought this stuff which is so beautiful. I've worn a lot of corsets in my acting life, and I'm so grateful, for starters, that this is the shape. It's a very voluptuous look. It's a lot of fabric, it's a lot of round, it's, you know, it's that, and it's really comfortable.
We're trying to use only the authentic fabrics that they used in ancient times. Wool, cotton, and linen. They even had silk from China. Julius Caesar was criticized for wearing silk because it was so expensive and so grand. And we have a big department. We have the seamstresses, the leather workers, metal department. He does everything from brass helmets to jewelry.
I think the workmanship that people have done on this, you know, the leather work and the metal work and all that, I think you could only really get here. It's all to such a high level, the workmanship. There's real sort of artisans, and they don't really exist in many places anymore.
They made the original helmet for the legionaries, and then I went to India and had them duplicated. And then we have all the people who fit, and we have the aging and dying department. We can't ever make them aged and dirty enough, it seems, but we try. After a ton of research, you just try to duplicate something wonderful and make it your own.
I'm the prop master on the show, and I have to find, make, supply all the action props for the whole series. Stab somebody like that and pull it out again.
When you feel the knife starting to go in, squirt.
Okay.
Yeah. And then when you pull out, squirt again.
This is a real axe, and then we have a rubber one made to copy it.
Let's have a go.
So somebody's sitting on a horse, they can wield this about and be quite comfortable with it, whereas if you're wielding this around, you've got to be Superman. This is Atia's whip, and she beats one or two people with it, so we've had to make some soft, lightweight ones, which we just transfer the handle over, and she can beat somebody with this and it won't hurt them. When anybody goes into the public toilets, they're communal, half-moon shaped, all facing each other, and when they go in, there's a gentleman at the door selling these, and this is your toilet paper. And we've had to create loads of maps, all out of parchment. We've got some money on the table, thousands of gold and silver and copper coins. They didn't have real books at that time, so we made up a wax book. It's all Latin writing. These are Caesar's standards, 13th Legion. They are copies of the originals. This is what we call a Legionnaire's backpack. Here we've got a selection of spears for the Gauls. They were all barbarians, they all had long hair. Every scalp they took, there was another trophy for their shield, which made them bigger warriors. It is a daunting task. We had to get 3 episodes together in one go. We find all the reference books we can, and then we sort of create them from there.
Ready? Photo frames, here we go. And
we're so lucky to be in Rome doing this series. And Rome, after all, is inspirational, just being here. And a lot of the research I've done is going to all the museums in Rome.
There's all those people that are working in the costume department. We've got prop department who are making all sorts of different stuff. We had Latin graffiti translated so that what we've written on the walls is real Latin abuse. I mean, the big sculptors, for example, sculpted from scratch. You know, we came up with the correct gods. It's a big task.
When they called us, I go like, Maurizio, well, let's go for it. I mean, it's interesting. And I thought it would be a challenge. I thought it would be excited. I got to have fun, no matter what. If you don't have fun in what I do, there's no point for me to do it.
It's just such a great job. I just love it. So it's something I've always wanted to do. It's like a dream that now I'm doing it.
Writing a show like this is comparatively easy. You can invent anything you like on the page. To see it realized, to see it concrete buildings right there and actors playing the roles is awe-inspiring, terrifying, and it gives you a great deal of respect and admiration for the people who actually build that to make it real is an astonishing accomplishment.